and we should be live with the Lessons Learned podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome once again. I know we took last week we didn't do much of anything because real life being what it is, but here we are. There's tons of news, a little bit of pre E3 talk, but mostly we're gonna talk about yet again the state of gaming and revisiting the old specter of the gaming crash of 1983 and how it applies to today, or more to the point, are we now closer to a gaming crash than ever before? Because while one could argue that within the industry things remain as bad as they've been of late, there's a couple of things that are happening in or outside of the industry that might directly affect it from legal point of views and national and international trade and all those things. That might be the tipping point that may lead to a crash, or at least a couple of big names taking a nosedive. We'll see. We'll see if that it is. But first and foremost, I think we're going to do what we do most, which is the news. Let's start with some stuff that isn't so bad news, such as for people who like old games, 1990s and 80s and PC games. Diablo has been on GOG for a while, but the one expansion that came out for Diablo, the original Diablo, not the one with the store and all the nonsense of that, Diablo Hellfire is being added for free on GOG. So if you buy Diablo, you get the expansion. DLC, you don't have to pay extra for them? Really?
Yeah. Huh.
Who knew? I mean, you want to say it's an all-ass game, but
I'm
it's
surprised the game isn't free.
yeah, it's like $6, I think. Oh, my chair. Sorry. It's like $6 or something like that. I mean, it's GOG. It's pretty cheap. Like, they're not going to charge you like $15 or $30, $60 for a brand new version of Diablo. It's like, what? Project CD Projekt Red has some of their own problems, so we're not going to go into them right now. But yeah, at least you don't feel like you get cheated when you buy a game from them. At least not yet. In other good news, Nier Automata has sold more than 4 million copies. And Platinum celebrates with some art they've released and some videos. This is from PC Gamer. I have yet to play it, mostly because I know how it ends. I'm gonna put the link below. I know how it plays, so it's how the stories go. So I've seen the seen the playthroughs. It seems like fun, but I don't know. I'm not convinced by the sort of attempts at making this sort of deep narrative.
I'm
Convoluted
curious to play it. I just haven't gotten around to it, and I need to pick up a copy for it. I haven't seen any kind of like spoilers for it at all, just because it seems kind of. I guess it's supposed to be one of those like interesting narratives and like weird meta comments.
Mm-hmm. And the gameplay looks fun, right? And it changes the gameplay and maps and all that. And it does have a cute robot girl with a very, very short skirt. So,
and actually, didn't she have like a really tight underwear that right up her butt, and you can kind of see like her parts of her anus, or at least like the parts of the anus where the skin color changes.
Yeah, something like that. You can actually have her run around in a leotard. You can unlock that. So that's a thing. If that's what you're into. And of course, if it's on PC, people have modded it. So yeah, you can probably see more, I guess, if that's what you're into. Single player game, so I don't have to, and Twitch won't allow you to stream it, or YouTube while she's naked. So yeah, that's the thing. In other news, from E3 of all things, Rocksteady won't be at E3 this year. This is also from PC Gamer, and they say essentially, Rocksteady has been pretty quiet since it set aside the cowl and finish up Batman. That's the Arkham series. So there's naturally been a lot of speculation about what has been working on since, but they're not going to be on E3. And this is quoting Sefton Hill, a co-founder of the studio. Hi all, a number of you have asked, so we want to tell you that you all know up front that Rocksteady Games won't be showing at E3 this year. We're watching as fans, but remain in London. Our work at our next big project. Enjoy the show. Okay. I guess. I mean, they're a developer studio, not a. They're developers and not necessarily
Publisher.
a publisher. Most, and E3 is expensive for everybody, so I guess they don't have anything to show, right? And they might be preparing for a next gen title come 2020. So that kind of makes sense.
Another Batman game, I guess.
Yeah, talking about developers, and yeah, this isn't the Onion Gamer Edition. This is from PC Gamer still. Xbox now has its own fragrance with woody bottom notes of patchouli? Rawada? Yeah, I mean, it looks like a cheap off-brand Axe thing that they're selling, but with the Xbox on it brand.
Oh, I think
Yeah,
I saw that. So I think I saw a picture of that in my feed.
and I'm like, I'm not kidding. Again, here's the link, so you guys don't say I'm lying to you guys. Yeah, it has its own fragrance. I know it doesn't smell like a vat of hand-crushed Doritos drenched in lukewarm fistless Mountain Dew. Oh, okay. I didn't need that nasal image, I guess. Quite the opposite. Apparently, has two top notes of citrus, middle notes of mint and sage, and wooden and clear wood. Australians will be able to buy in a supermarket and pharmacy next month. So this is in Australia. Probably not in America.
I'm sure people will import it if they really wanted to.
Yeah, I guess if you want to smell nice while playing a video game and not smell like you haven't bathed in 3 days after being in a video game convention, this one's for you. I guess. No.
I still think that'd be like, I kind of wonder what like a fragrance of Doritos and Mountain Dew would smell like. Probably not as good as you would hope.
Yeah, no, I don't know. Doritos. It'll be tangy, I guess, if that's a word. I think a piece of news that I think you're going to particularly like, Chapel One, is that this is only a tease, by the way, so it's not like a hardcore news. But the makers of Divinity Original Sin 1 and 2 are teasing Baldur's Gate 3. This morning, Larian Studios put a teaser of the company's website with a big O3, which led many to believe that Divinity Original Sin 3 was en route. But some clever HTML snooping by Twitter user Kunkuken, and confirmed by Kotaku, leads us to Jason Schreier, I believe, is one who confirmed it. Leads to a whole bunch of hints that this Baldur's Gate 3 officially licensed from Dungeons & Dragons makers Wizards of the Coast. And, the article continues with this following sentence to show that people in Kotaku are still fans of games. Before I go any further, allow me to make a brief digression. And I quote, I'm quoting here, Twitch, "Holy fucking shit." Unquote. Okay, carry on. Then 2001, I played one Canadian about Beamdog Best, and this basically carry on from Beamdog's revivals of Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 and Icewind Dale, and also putting that on, or that will be coming later on this year on consoles. So there's that, and you played a lot of Divinity 1 and 2. I played a little bit of Divinity Original Sin 1, but not 2. I want to get into that game, but then I have a long list of games to play. It sounds like a cool idea.
So I think I've never played Baldur's Gate 1 or 2. I think I played the only Baldur's Gate I've ever played was some sort of this is back when Christmas, really early mid 2000s, where I got a PlayStation 2 for Christmas, and like some budget title that was something Baldur's Gate on PlayStation 2, and it was like very simplified and dumbed down and really short. I mean, I had fun with it.
There's 2 Baldur's Gate themed games, which is Baldur's Gate Alliance 1 and 2, I think. But
I think it was Alliance.
Yeah, they're arcadey. They were arcadey. I played both of them. The second one had an infuriating fight with a vampire that had both. He could drain your life by distance. It could also enable a vampire and drain your life by stabbing you with a rapier. And he was very fast.
It was Baldur's Gate's Dark Alliance. I just remember you start at in some bar, and then you go
Yeah.
from the sewers through some door in the bar, and I had fun with it. It was simple, and that's. mm, but I take it that's probably really dumbed down from what the screenshots I'm seeing from Boulder's Gate, which is, it seems a lot like yeah, they definitely wanna go with oh wow, I'm gonna butcher their name, Lavin Studios,
Hmm.
because they given how much it looks like Divinity 2 did really well catching that old school RPG feel. And if they want to definitely make a sequel to something that's really old school RPG, well, then you should probably go with a studio that's already made one in present day.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, Beamdog basically has been adapting old titles, but they're not been making new ones. The last time they
Mhm.
adapted something was Neverwinter Nights, the original Neverwinter Nights for PC, a remastered edition. Don't know if that's going to come out for consoles. I know that Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 and Icewind Dale 1 and 2 are probably are in the dock, so to speak, but not Neverwinter Night. And I don't think Neverwinter Nights, because of the graphics, are pretty blocky, are probably not going to be a good fit. It looks more like an early PSX title than anything else. It's a good game, but it's a very much a dated game, right? Where the isometric games, yeah, they're older graphics, but they look and they look good enough, and you can sort of uprest them much easier, especially the sort of the backgrounds so they look crisper, and so that's not a problem. Now, talk about good news, sort of going back to GOG. I should have done this after Diablo announcement or even before that. GOG Galaxy 2.0, just according to their press release, it says the following: GOG Galaxy 2.0, which is their client, all your games and friends in one place. I've been talking about this for some time. Somebody was going to make an sort of a super app to put all your clients under. Now, how exactly this is going to work, I think it's going to work with the pre-existing APIs. If it works as advertised, I'm going to use it. Because I have Origin, I have GOG, and I have Steam. And here's the link to it so people can know where to go.
Although I would wonder if you would need you wouldn't need all the actual applications installed though, wouldn't you?
I suppose you have to, right? Because it uses the API and probably also uses your account information that's in your computer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it says about your games. I'm ready to come with features. Import all your games from PC and consoles, build and organize them into one master collection, install and launch any PC game you own, no matter the platform. Keep track of all your achievements, hours, plays, and game known, which is standard client stuff. Customize your library, right? Following upcoming releases, discover games popular among your friends in the gaming community. So you can cross-reference, right, different things, I suppose. Bring together your friends from all platforms. Bring your friends from all platforms and see their online status. No matter which platform your friends are, you can chat with them. Okay, see your friends across platform achievements, game time, milestone, recently played games. See who's your master collector, completionist. Okay, that's your privacy. Well, your personal data will never be shared with third parties. We're not spying on data from your computer. I guess they're trying to tell something to a certain new gaming store that's coming out. Or at least the allegations. I'm not saying that they're doing it. With a single click, you can remove imported games and friends data from your servers. Oh, interesting. Your client, your new library management friends features takes your experience to the next level. I guess that doesn't say much. I guess new tools for library management. And the client is not required to play any of your DRM-free GOG games. So, and this is one of the things about the GOG client is that it doesn't check the DRM status of any of your games because it presumes that all games sold on GOG are DRM free. Use features like cloud saving, in-game overlay, multiplayer, and matchmaking, rollbacks, and more. So it doesn't. If those features are already in the game, then they're allowed, rather than adding a new one. More connect more platforms and new features, open source integrators or customizations, and change your library, save cloud, and sync between all your devices. If any views like customized library, okay. So seems to be pretty standard, pretty robust stuff. We're seeing more of this, more integration. Like there's a news that recently Xbox, Phil Spencer said yeah, we're not gonna do Epic exclusives. In fact, the opposite. We're gonna take the stuff that was in the Microsoft Store that was cross-platform or PC based, and we're gonna put them on Steam, which they already started with the announcement of the Halo collections.
Yeah.
Some people have been waiting for decent ports of the Halo games into PC. I think the last
Yeah.
one was Halo 2, and there's another up-down games, but they don't count really.
Yeah, I know somebody who's really looking forward to those.
They haven't dropped yet. I will replay especially Halo the Master Edition, and I would probably record the entire game because the game has great music, great set pieces. It's a lot of fun, and playing with keyboard and mouse, I think it would be huge, huge thing. I say maybe for the driving sections, I think that would be the. Oh, I don't mind. I'll probably use a controller if the driving is too clunky with keyboard and mouse. I'll just play the whole game in controller because it was designed to be played with controller to begin with. It has even the original Halo Combat Evolved had a very good auto targeting and compensating system. So yeah, it actually played very well with controller, surprisingly well. In fact, I found using controller that strafing is much easier for me than doing it with a keyboard and mouse. I'm always because the tendency for me is instead of letting it drift sideways, it's like I'm looking this direction, so I want to go in that direction, right?
Yeah.
And run away. Oh, they're shooting, and I want to keep shooting. No, but you got to look at that guy. But you're running. But with a controller, I just sort of keep auto aim, and I sort of slide, and it helps, right? People say it's like, well, you're not really a pro, and I'm like, you're really right. I'm not a pro. It doesn't matter. Single player, full life. So yeah, doesn't matter to me. And now we start getting into the not so pleasant news. Another publisher struggles. According to PC Gamer, Starbreeze lays off 20% of its workforce. They are the makers of such games as Payday 2, Overkill's The Walking Dead, and it would lay off approximately 60% of their employees. So they have a total payroll about 180, I suppose. 60, 120, 100, no, 240 employees, if my math is right. And the typical boilerplate stuff from CEO Michael Nermark. In the past 6 months, we have made a number of changes to the business follower strategy to focus on the core business, peeling away the layers of stuff that they got as they grew, I suppose, and the employees that came with it. We had divested some of the operations that we considered non-core. We have looked around inward to make the core business more efficient. And the situation has been in a quote unquote challenging financial situation, which sounds like the early stages of bankruptcy proceedings, if I want to be totally honest with you.
Yeah.
Since 2018.
Gonna say, is this another telltale issue? It's like, although I don't think they have are constantly putting out a bunch of stuff in terms of just oversaturating their market with games. I think they've been. What was the last thing they released was Payday 2, just ports, and they have been kind of pushing the microtransaction stuff into it, haven't they?
Yeah. I think there was a controversy about changes in Payday too, especially with a lot of the microtransactions. Like they changed the way they didn't have them, or they changed the way they did. I don't remember. Let's do a little Payday 2 control.
I think they started putting in loot boxes, and then you have to. It's not just you can't just buy the loot boxes. You have to buy the keys to unlock the loot boxes.
Yeah, well, it says this is from 2015. For years, Payday 2 developers insisted the game wouldn't have microtransactions.
Mm-hmm.
And then the way, according to Kotaku, the way they handled it was not great. So again, a link to that news. Oh my god, sorry. Just saw a side note there. And yeah. Wow. Yeah, I mean, you don't see the effects of stuff that happened a couple of years back, but they seem to be catching up with it, and that's something we're gonna be talking about. That's probably gonna fit into the larger news and discussion today. You brought this up on the Discord. Academics create the first psychological test for gaming disorder.
Yeah. So it's a so I believe I heard this on the radio too, that the World National Organization of Health have pretty much have like an entry now for gaming disorder as a thing. All right, let me find that link. And I heard this I think last week, where the the World Health Organization too is decision to classify gaming disorder as a disease. They've also done this online quiz. It's not meant to kind of diagnose. It's a research tool to just kind of see how people are scoring on this, and whether they have a gaming disorder, essentially gaming addiction. Now, I took the quiz, and some of the questions, first off, they're all very negative. They're all very focused on, some of the questions they're all like multiple choice. They're like those personality tests that you assessments where they might make a statement and then you have to pick one of the 5, 6 options. I slightly disagree, I disagree, I strongly disagree, in the middle, and then agree. A lot of the questions are negative, like, oh, this online gaming has like negatively affected my life. Yes, no, strongly disagree, and stuff. And then you can do a little further analysis. They'll ask you sort of like, if you want to see what your results are based on your questions, you take like this other personality test where, but it sort of, it makes like, it does like, I'm an extrovert, introvert person kind of questions. And then it kind of, it's weird, because then it turns around, also asks you questions like, hey, do you do the following, which is like, it also links gaming a lot with social media use. And the other thing they ask you is like, do you watch online porn, and do you shop online? No. And then they ask you questions about like, do you skip social events to go watch porn out at home, or like, do you skip social events to go shopping online instead of going out with people? And it's like, I'm like, okay, some of these questions are, I don't know. It almost seems like it's trying to find something, and then the results seem a little odd. Let's see if I could pull my results. Do I have that? So I scored, based on my results, I scored a 7 out of 20 points. And apparently, according to this, 57% of the participants have a lower score than you. And I guess so far, 560 people have already participated in this study. So it rates. So the scoring system is weird, because it rates a scoring from 5 to 20 points with higher scores indicates higher tendencies towards gaming disorder. So does that mean I'm on the low end? And like, why is it such a high like variable? So if you score under a 5, then are you just not prone to it? Like, what does any of this mean?
Yeah, I don't think it's also because it might not be translated from other languages like Chinese, right?
And so the other thing too is, like, I told the quiz that like one of the questions is like, what do you primarily play? And I said I play offline games. Like, sure, a lot of games most of the time now have like some stupid online element to them, but I primarily play games that are single player, and you don't have to play online if you didn't want to. And it kept asking me questions, and even then it's like, hey, like, do you agree these pertain to online things? But I'm like, I said I don't play online games. So like, all of these are no's. It's like, how often do you like avoid doing chores to play online games? Well, I don't. Like, granted, I do play games. to avoid chores, but they're not online games, so no, because
Yeah.
I don't play online games.
Their criteria seems to be a bit off. Doesn't or as
Yes,
encompassing as it
exactly.
should be, I guess.
And like I said, it's a lot of them. It sort of does address like, oh, do you play to escape and have realism? But it seems really particular on focusing on the negative, which I guess it's like if gaming's an issue, you would have a lot of negative things to it. But it's like, maybe I'm biased. The little personality test too. Well, I guess I kind of agree with them. It's like, according to this, like I'm slightly more open than I guess their norm. Slightly more agreeable than their norm, slightly less emotional stable than their norm. I'm just like under the norm or I'm nearing their norm of their baseline norm, I guess. The average results for their personality, except that according to this, I'm very introverted compared to their. That's like the spike difference on their norm, which actually I kind of agree. I am actually pretty introverted.
Yeah. Now,
So and it also tries to link you like, hey, are you interested in our study for smartphone addiction?
mhm.
Which is like, okay, which I don't. So a lot of these, the thing is with this quiz, it's like, and maybe there is a thing when it comes to why people like. I sometimes feel like they pick on gaming so much. It's like, so is there like a quiz for just general screen time? Like, is there a TV disorder?
Mhm.
Like where people just want to do nothing but watch television. I remember that used to be the biggest boogeyman in the 90s. Like, oh, our kids are watching too much TV and it's going to rot your brain.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's a part of victim blaming and escapism and all that,
Yeah, but
and
I
not
mean,
looking at the real problem underlying whatever supposedly the addiction, if it is a real addiction, involves. But I think it's certainly it's we're not gonna yet dovetail into the main article because I came across this on Kotaku and I just because we talked about this something before, and I just thought it's hilarious but also very true. Blizzard's reveal of Schoolgirl Diva kicked off an Overwatch porn race.
what?
I want to link it to you. It has no safe for work, not comments, not content, and talks about bodily functions and whatnot. So you're not into that, and I'm not gonna quote from that. But here's the opening paragraph. When Overwatch debuted in the new Academy skin for Korean Idol, War Hero, and Champion Gamer, basically it's a schoolgirl outfit. And she already has worn like very tight-fitting clothes anyway. A few people more delighted than Kim. Kim, who has to be kept anonymous, is a 22-year-old student living near Los Angeles. In many ways, she's exactly what you might expect from an Overwatch fan. She plays with friends, cheers for the Seoul Dynasty in the Overwatch League, and is a proud Mercy main. There's just one difference. Kim works as a cam girl doing online shows for paying customers. And it talks about people using Blender and SFM and all that for creating online porn, and how it is tied to this as well. I guess you can throw porn addiction into the mix now.
Yep.
I guess. And it's very interesting. I think it's one of the things that really shows that gaming has grown up, or it's a game at adult, I suppose.
Well, if you look at there's a lot of stuff that gets made in using assets from video games. It's like, well, people like these characters. It's honestly sort of taking like slash fiction to the next level, and you're just making it visual as well.
I mean, there's a whole tradition of decades worth, especially in Japan, of the doujin, right? Of making off-brand, supposedly parodies of existing anime and manga and film, and making your own version of it. And a strong subset of that is just taking the characters from video games and anime and all that and making porn. And there's an entire industry about that, and I think that's I always say that's one of the reasons why, for example, companies like Sony and Nintendo and Sega are so overzealous with their copyrights, especially the characters abroad, because they're trying to not get it. They can't. It already has happened, but in many ways they don't want to replicate the doujin phenomenon. Which, by the way, doujin necessarily means pornographic. It's just that good portion of it is it, and you can make money out of it. So you can make a doujin out of, and people are making in Patreon like, yeah, I'm making a doujin out of Diva having sex with May or something. Okay, and as long as you label it a parody, at least in the US, it's technically legal. Or you can also avoid it by saying I'm getting Patreon that supports my art, but I'm not selling the art directly. So it's still fan base.
I'm funded through donations to draw whatever I want. I just happen to draw this.
Yeah, or animate it or something like that. So it's built on something that already has existed. It's sort of it feels like it's something new. It's news, literally, but not really. And now we're getting into the meat of this, which was the previous article sort of goes into. And there's two articles I want to talk about. The base article from Kotaku. U.S. Senator introduces bill to ban loot boxes and pay-to-win microtransactions. This is from Jason Schreier. We talked about this before. Essentially, Senator John Hawley, Republican from MO, I guess Missouri. Sometimes the codes for the states are kind of confusing for somebody who doesn't live in the states. Announced a bill that to essentially ban loot boxes and pay-to-win microtransactions in games played by minors, which is a lot of video games. Because a lot of video games are rated, E for everyone or T for teen, right? It's kind of like movie ratings. You rate something PG or even R, but you don't rate it NC-17 or X. It used to be the old market because that was nobody would show the film, right? It was too much. Kind of the same thing with video games, unless you're deliberately making a porn game, right? And even then, a lot of them are so heavily censored because they're Japanese games that it's like, where's the porn? I guess. Never mind. Don't ask me how I know that because I'm not going to tell you. But there was a follow-up article or opinion piece by Owen S. Good. That's an odd last name, but on Polygon, name and title. Not entitled, I guess. Yeah. Freudian slip, maybe? Anti-loot box bill poses a real threat to sports video games. I'm not going to go through the entire article because this is more of a long chain pad to what we're going to talk. But essentially, yeah, that's a long word salad letter mangle thing called Cthulhu thing. But suffice it to say that the argument is it's very expensive for companies like 2K or EA to buy recurring licenses from, the parent owners like NBA, NFL, NHL, FIFA, etc. Some of them costing over $1 billion and going, right? And the only way to defray that cost and to make money is not by the sale of games, but all the microtransactions are paid. I mean, literally, the subtitle is, how else are those $1 billion licenses paid? Well, first of all, Mr. Good, the reason why they've come to $1 billion licenses is because over the years, video game companies have made collectively billions of dollars on these games, even before microtransactions were added to them, and were willing to pay an ever-increasing price. So, supply and demand, my dear good friend. Capitalism. And that happened even before microtransactions. With microtransactions, of course, companies like EA made even more and more money, which meant that the license holders were like, oh, you can actually afford to pay $500 million for this license, $750 million, $1 billion, $1.5 billion. And the companies were willing to pay it because it guaranteed them that they would earn this kind of money. Again, supply and demand. None of that has anything to do with whether or not loot boxes or this bill should pass. You should not write legislation because a company created a business model that drove prices up.
Yeah.
By strength of supply and demand. And the market, well, sometimes aspects of the market can be hurtful to some people. And in theory, politicians should listen to the people and not the corporations, and certainly not their bottom lines. But what does that have to do with the great gaming crash of 2020, if you want to call that, or 2021? Well, warning. We're speculating here. We're
Yeah.
prognosticating. We're bringing our crystal balls here. And when you're doing that, you can go from I can't believe you even said that to oh my god, it was worse than you could ever possibly imagine. But the trends so far are the news are. We'll be talking about. I think some last year, end of last year, we'll be talking about all the bad news. People getting fired in Blizzard. Problems with what I now call. I think right now you can call the situation more of a video game. What do I call it? Recession, where the growth of many of these games has stalled. Right. They're still earning millions upon millions of dollars and collectively billions of dollars. But games like Call of Duty have not been making the kind of money they were making. So much so that the next Call of Duty, it's going to be called Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Because reasons. And the reason is money. By the way, this is after the re-release of the Call of Duty Modern Warfare, Call of Duty number 4, Modern Warfare, with a slew of microtransactions added to it, right? And other stuff as well. So it's like
the DLC notably being sold separately.
And the DLC knows to be so separately to entice, and also done. You had to buy another Call of Duty game in order to unlock the Call of Duty. I believe it was the last of the future Warfare games, and when it was on Mars, in order to play Call of Duty Remastered.
Modern Warfare Remastered.
So yeah, I mean, who made that decision? Did I make the decision? Did you make the decision? Chat. Did anybody in chat make the decision? You guys didn't make the decision. I didn't do it. Nobody in the gaming community said, yes, tie that game I really want to play with this other game that I may not want to play, and then put microtransactions on it, and then make all the DLC still DLC that I have to rebuy again, which includes map packs, by the way, which if you know anything about online play, you know that divides the audience, because some people buy some map packs or no map packs, and they can't play with the people that have them, and etc., etc., etc. So we've seen a lot of the problems with the system right now, but the real problem is twofold. First of all, tariffs. They've been announced recently that the Trump administration might put tariffs on a slew of products coming out of China, including video game products of some sorts, right? Which, this is on the hardware side of things, could raise the price, or probably, in fact, will raise the price of stuff like, consoles, specifically Japanese, but even American-made consoles, or American-designed consoles like the Xbox, which are made in places like China under, say, one particular company, Foxconn. So if you're somebody who plays primarily mobile games on your Apple or your Google made Google, it's not Google. I don't use an Apple game. What's the I sound like an old man. What's the phone, the non-Apple phone?
Android.
Android. Well, guess where they're made? Mostly in China. In fact, all of Apple products get made by Foxconn, which is a Taiwanese company that has factories in mainland China. That also means the next line of Sony consoles, the ones that are supposed to come out in 2020, again, Foxconn. Nintendo, which is now leading the pack in sales and actually making profits out of their sales in consoles, and now probably going to release a new slim version of their current console. Foxconn, China. In fact, last year, Nintendo couldn't deliver as many consoles as they want to because there was only so much production line capacity for these other companies in Foxconn, and they were left behind. There were really not enough microchips for them to do that. And also, we also consider that a lot of these new consoles share a lot of the hardware with both mobile phones and PCs. That probably means that stuff like, graphic cards, which have been sky high for many years, are going to even be more expensive. That means that if 2020 comes along and Sony is forced to price their new PlayStation at $600 instead of $500 or $400, regardless of how many features it has, it might be too much. Nintendo might have to cut back in production, which they've done before with the situation with Foxconn, which means that their console can take a hit. The same happens with and PC gaming can also be affected because certain pieces are also made by Foxconn and other Chinese companies manufactured. If not the entire thing, then parts of motherboards, graphic cards, and all the stuff. So again, the price goes up, and it's like, well, I guess I won't update my PC for the new games, right? Which means if new games come out, I won't be able to play them because I don't have the hardware to play them effectively. So you can see there's a ripple effect of that, and that could hit the industry at a very crucial moment when it comes to 2020. And then on top of that, you have the legislation that says, listen, you have been building all this stuff on microtransactions, and we're gonna take an axe to it.
Yep.
So I talked a lot. So just Chapelman, just fill in the blanks for us. What do you think about these developments?
So a couple things. The tariffs themselves could cause a bit of gatekeeping when it comes to or just setting the bar of entry to gaming in general pretty high, especially if you require hardware upgrades or just getting a new console in general. We did mention it before the chat. It's we're kind of wondering what would that mean for physical copies? A lot of the stuff is manufactured in other places. Maybe the parts, the cases are manufactured in other cases and might be assembled in Mexico and before they're shipped here. So what would that mean for physical media, since we're a strong proponent of physical media versus digital? So does that mean that there's going to be less physical media now, which is pretty bad for game preservation? There's also the fact that the other thing in terms of the microtransactions, and it seems that it's sort of being self-made in terms of the gaming industry as a whole has shifted their perspective on making money and satisfying stockholders through microtransactions because those make money, which means that they're hiring people based on structuring their business based on those profits from that business strategy. And of course, if that gets taken away, we might lose people. We also might start losing potentially gaming developers as a whole wanting to make taking risk in terms of making new IPs. An article that I just linked was the whole that Activision and Blizzard considers Crash Bandicoot and Spyro the Dragon as flagship brands. These two late 90s characters that no one kind of cared about all that much past the mid 2000s, and apparently they're digging them up out of their graves and putting them up on because their remaster sold really well, so let's start milking these brands again instead of trying to come up with something new. Or it might also get other developers to start doing suit, and it's just hey, let's see what other consoles or what other IPs we can dig up that just have brand recognition. We saw that a couple of years ago when EA announced their Command and Conquer series, that horrible mobile game that no one wanted, and everyone was pissed off because it wasn't representative of the Command and Conquer series.
Or and the new Diablo that's coming out also for mobile.
Oh yeah, that's the newest one. It's so it's interesting because we might be seeing a gaming crash. The last gaming crash I don't think happened because of external forces in terms of legislation and stuff when it came to the gaming industry putting up bad quality games or having tariffs. But most of it was kind of self-induced, and we're sort of seeing the same in terms of the kind of games that they're putting out and their business practices, and the fact that now the government needs to kind of crack down both on the legislation for microtransactions, and then of course not their fault, the fact that they require overseas trade to create their consoles and create their products.
Mm-hmm.
Although the one thing I'm kind of wondering is so what would that mean for, say, I don't know, would tariffs really affect, like, say, digital goods in terms of, I don't know, like, Japan makes a lot of video games or a lot of software in terms of
Yeah, I don't think they're getting hit with tariffs right now. They could get hit in the future, but not right now. But
okay.
I think the problem is if you make if you're and we talked about the news about the new Rocksteady, possible new game. If the new Rocksteady game comes for new hardware and that hardware doesn't sell well,
Mhm.
then the game is going to suffer it. And I think what's happening here is that you have a very fragile business model that is based on engagement. And I would go even further. And this is where the discussion about the who and describing, essentially video game addiction is that in essence, engagement, when you take it to the literal sense, it's really inducing addiction on people. People getting so addicted to the game that they will continue to buy stuff because they have to be in the game, they have to play it. And even if it's a very small percentage, I think that we said that whales are about 5% of the total population in any one game. They generate millions of dollars. If you have pressure from international bodies like, the World Health Organization, governments like China, which is now the largest market for video games, saying, "No, we're going to crack down on this." They've done crackdowns before, trying to fight video game addiction. If they really get into it, they have the power, and they've shown that they don't care what companies believe. Google doesn't like it. Fuck you, Google. We're the Chinese government, a communist party, right? We're the communist lollies here. We don't care, right? And we have enough internal market that we can write it out, so we don't care about you. We have our own developers and stuff like that. And then you got legislation. Not only we've already seen bans in Europe, especially places like Belgium. If it spreads to the level of the EU, if the United States, which is still one of the largest markets, second, maybe third largest market, says, okay, you can sell loot boxes to kids, period, right? The mobile market is going to take a huge hit. So, for example, if the new Diablo game is going to go mobile, and then not only are iPhones more expensive to begin with, but also, you're not supposed to have loot boxes on it. It's like, I mean, the whole microtransaction / loot box economy is based on the idea of players just being always player and a slight level of addiction to a particular game. To keep playing it and playing it and playing it and be so into the game, so engaged that they're willing to continue to pay more money along the way. These external attacks are already hitting the weak points of the business model. A business model that I always contain, and I'm not the only one. I will happily say that people like James Sterling have been saying all this, the same thing for a very long time. It's already pretty vulnerable, and it's an unsustainable business model, right? If you throw in, say, and again, this is crystal ball thing. I'm looking in the crystal ball. The same tariffs could kick off not only an ongoing trade war, which is already happening, and escalate them. That could lead to a global recession in 2020. At that very moment when companies like Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo are either updating or putting out new hardware. Look at all the companies that are not going to 2019 because they're saving their pennies. They're preparing for 2021 being the big year, big 2 years. If it so happens everything happens at once, and also in many ways, a lot of companies are also putting their services, rental services in a way, right? Pay a monthly subscription to get more games, free games on Origin or free games through Microsoft Live or whatever. Yeah, that's a problem because what happens when people start getting fired across the board? They start cutting up their expenses, and the first thing that goes is the Netflixes, the Origin, pay subscription, the Twitch. Well, I'm gonna take a hit on that one, and stuff like that, right? Because it's just it's $5 here, $10 there, $20, and together they make it. Patreon, 50, I can save a good $30 to $50 a month. They can have for something else, and that again is sort of the revolving situation that snowballs into effect, and we have a video game industry has decided collectively that the only way to exist is to have this very particular model, right? Activision, the big players, Ubisoft, Activision, Capcom, Konami, Electronic Arts, all of them have gotten on board with this idea, right? And I think the reason why people like myself were saying, well, it never will be that bad, is because these companies have deep pockets, and they have a lot of places. But when you literally cut off the source, or even threaten the source of that income, what's the first thing's going to happen? If it looks like this bill's going to pass, what's the even before it hits, the Senate floor? I think you're going to see a lot of investors just running the hell away from EA and these companies. Like, oh, there's a chance I'm going to lose money. Might as well sell now before 6 months down the line my stocks are worthless, right? And that means that the company gets devaluated, which is what happened. What's happened to Activision earlier this year, that they were making hundreds of millions of dollars, but the actual value of the company went down because it got devaluated, because their stocks went down, because they didn't make as much money as expected. So it's a catch-22 that the industry has created for itself, and these outside things should never have affected the industry if the industry didn't choose, like we said earlier, this business model. And the reasons why I don't bring this up is because articles like Polygon on this are like, yeah, you're taking for granted that this has to be this way. This is a situation that was created, decisions that were made, and they snowballed into huge profits, and now they could snowball in the other direction.
Yep.
Of huge losses, right? And in many ways, that's what happened to Atari, right? Atari had its own business model, which was based on, and we can see other things, for example, increasing unionization of employees, because of crunch and all that. People are going like, yeah, we don't want to, want to put up with this anymore, and go like, well, it's not about paying us more; it's about having sensible working hours, or and paying everybody, including the QA testers. I would suggest everybody to. I'm gonna see if I can find it.
Super Bunny Hoff's video on
yeah, very important. Super
on quality assurance testers.
QA.
Yeah, that's really good. It's honestly a really depressing video.
Which is he's doing great work on this, right? How the video game industry treats its testers. And he's done other videos, but he's been doing.
The following video is brought to you.
Sorry about that. That should have been muted. I'm going to put the link to it because I think it's very important. And you can't turn around and say like, well, you shouldn't ask to unionize. Like, well, they're unionizing as a reaction to how poorly they're being treated, how they're exploited. So they don't see any other way, right? And we kind of saw this before, more recently, when the MMO bubble burst. A lot of developers went under, not publishers, but developers.
And our favorite one to bring up being Studio 38.
Mm-hmm. They were hoping to make an MMO and never got to. They made a okay to good game, but if you really want to try a somewhat open world game, Kingdoms of Amalur is a pretty good price on Steam,
which ended up getting. The IP got bought out by, I think, THQ recently.
Yeah, THQ Nordic. Which THQ Nordic has that THQ because the original THQ went down in flames in the early 2000 and the early 2010s, right? 2011, 2012. Again, that's an after effect of, among other things, bad decisions, but also, and Super Bunny Hop has a video on that. You should check it out. The fall of THQ. On his channel, but also changing the economy, right? It was the Great Recession, and it so happens that their pockets were not as deep, right? And one of the things that happened is that companies like EA were able to take on years of losses on devaluation during and after the Great Recession. Some argue the Great Recession is still happening even to this day, so we're just going to have another downturn deeper into the well, but I'm not going to go into that deep of economic analysis because I don't have the expertise. But because they had deep pockets. But now I gotta wonder: did they replenish their the cash holdings? Do they really have the cash holdings that kept them alive? Do they have the people that are willing to, write out? Because it's not simply that they're not going to make money, because they were making money. They were devaluated, but they were making money, right? EA was making money all those years. They were not really in the red. They're mostly the stocks fell, but they were more or less profitable. Otherwise, they wouldn't have survived because they would have been bleeding. It would have been hemorrhaging money rather than just value. But if their stocks get devalued, which a lot of your cash reserves kind of go from the value of a company, and on top of that, your biggest source of continued growth, microtransactions, gets cut off as well. And maybe even, because we don't even talk about concerned parents groups, because maybe the bill doesn't fly, but when this person goes back to Missouri, there's a senator, and talks to his constituencies, and among them are, mothers and parents age 25 to 50, and they go like, yeah, by the way, do you know that the games that your kids are playing, have the chance of getting them addicted and, taking your credit card and, emptying your bank account, your debit card, which also has a credit card logo on it. You know that? People will go like, what? What? Oh,
yeah. One would hope that like their parents would be more alert and more with the times and proactive when it comes to technology. But my experience has shown that no.
And so one thing is you don't want, we already had this in 1990s and early 2000s of people calling about video game violence and all that, right? Mostly a boogeyman, but this one, I think it's not so much of a boogeyman because it's a real thing. We have case after case after case of kids they're anecdotal, but still happens, that empty their wallets of their parents, right? We have a situation that is designed to do so. And if you start parading experts and psychiatrists and psychologists and parents in front of, a Congress subcommittee to investigate this, again, it's all about timing, and if the timing is not right or happens to be wrong for everybody, then yeah, this could really hurt. That's why you have the SRB in the first place, to avoid that kind of thing. But the SRB said, no, microtransactions are fine. We just have to put a label, and that's it.
Yeah, and of course, it's not really an accurate label since it lumps in microtransactions in with DLC.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's a possibility. I'm gonna say this. It's not a guarantee, but I do believe that we are in a situation where, I'll put it this way. It's very easy for me 6 months from now, if something happens, I can say, much easier to me say, be sure that I can say, I told you so, than nothing happens. We're sort of past. Now, the question is what it would look like. Again, I think we talked about this before, and we're already seeing it. Like, Activision Blizzard just becomes Activision. It kind of already is, because Blizzard's been kind of subsumed by Activision, and apparently Blizzard is now in position, and people keep leaving Blizzard, because they don't like the work environment. You have Randy Pitchford over at Gearbox just going insane for some reason, right? We have now the Molyneux effect has now been called the Howard effect, because Todd Howard got caught on video saying, well, the reason why Fallout 76 didn't do so well, it's because, people don't understand the kind of game it is. And you know what? We should talk about one future, about Fallout 76 and why it became the game it is, but not today. But the fact that
chasing trends, really.
Yeah. Todd Howard and the leadership of both Bethesda Softworks and perhaps their parent company, ZeniMax, sort of misread the entire situation. It's our own flogging dead horse, BioWare and Anthem, which now they even apparently canceled all announcements of the roadmap that we're doing, because they're still working on making the game workable somehow.
Yeah, their new the promised Cataclysm does not live up to that fake trailer that was presented at E3
again. And that's sort of the thing. Is like, on one hand you have these outside stuff, but on the other hand you have the ultimate inside thing, which we talk about engagement. Well, what happens when players start disengaging? Right? They get tired of, oh yeah, I watch a great E3, and then the game I got had nothing. It got downgraded or had these problems, was buggy, or I didn't get what I was promised, right?
Yeah.
What happens when you essentially play the same game over? You played 100, 200, 300 hours of the same game, and then you go, oh, it's a new game, and it's kind of the same game I played before. And, and I could go back to my old game, but my friends have moved out to other games, and I guess I will play with that one friend that I'm playing this, but I'm not really having fun, so I guess I'll watch someone else play the game, maybe. I'm not really sure, right? Or, hey, I paid a lot of money to have this one famous streamer, influencer, prop up the sales of my game and numbers, but then the money ran out and he started playing other games, and with it went out the audience, right? As readily people can engage with the game, they can also disengage, and the thing is, once they disengage, they're reluctant to re-engage. I mean, we gamers, whatever you assign a meaning of gamer to, we put up with a lot of shit from the video game industry, a lot. But once we sort of get tired of something, I feel like people are just like, oh god, this is shit, and we move on. At least I did. I'm done. So yeah, I think that's the final thing. That it's a combination of a fragile business model coming under attack from the outside, something that the video game industry can control or cannot control, and ultimately the model itself sort of running down their own players until they get tired of it. And it's sort of the combination and all that means that you could have a potential crash come next year or a couple of years in the future. I hope it doesn't happen, because to be honest, I would want the video game industry to improve and get rid of all this stuff without having hundreds or thousands of people laid off.
Yeah, especially on top of it would suck in terms of they're the people that end up kind of losing out, is the people down at the bottom.
Yeah.
And even though they have to put up with really crappy working conditions, I mean, it's sad to say, it's like at least they're employed and have a living
wage.
Yeah,
maybe. Is it? I mean, we're gonna argue that. Are you really living? I suppose that's the actual question. So I think my final conclusion is that this is something of the video games leadership in video game industry are making. And now they're kind of like, if they're not panicking, they're about to. So that was all of us here at, all two of us here at the Lesson Learned podcast. Hopefully, not next week, but the week after that, probably we'll be talking about all things E3. So Chapamon, where can we find you on the interwebs?
You can find me at Chapamon pretty much everywhere. I am Chapamon_Aragon on Twitch and Twitter, and I primarily hang out on YouTube, but under just Chapamon.
And you can find me here. We tend to do these podcasts on Thursdays and Fridays. Wednesdays and Thursday at 2 o'clock Eastern. And I'm right now playing or replaying BattleTech with the new Urban Warfare DLC. And it seems to be a lot of fun, so I hope you join me. And as always, we will see you when we see you. Bye-bye, everybody.